So yes, we're finally here, the Flail tanking video featuring the Power Stone that also lets you heal your friends and do some other really cool stuff. Anyway, let's talk about the Power Stone really quick. Where do you get the Power Stone artifact? So under activities, once you hit 65, you're going to unlock Soul Trials, and these are daily things. You can do 3 of them, like today is Eternal Frost, Mahantram's Court, as well as Beyond the Gates. You finish these, and in the loot pool, you can see the Power Stone. It's really simple to get. All you got to do is complete it, and it's an opportunity to be able to get it 3 chances per day. It only took me 1 day really to get it. Anyway, with this build, we are talking about the Power Stone and everything that comes along with it. So let's talk about gear, weapons. I'll walk through the masteries, the actual like attributes that I use, and then I'm going to show you some gameplay of me doing this specific build so you can see it in action. All right, so let's go through each piece of gear and weapons and talk about the choice or if there are other options. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about this. First, we're going to talk about the Power Stone artifact itself. As you can see here, the perk that is on here is called Heavy Burden. If health is above 90%, attacks cause 20% weaken for 5 seconds. There's a 5-second cooldown per each target. And what we found out in the life staff video is this applies for both weapons. So whatever weapon you have on the offhand of this, you're going to be able to apply these weakens if you're above 90% health as well. This is huge because allowing yourself to put this weaken down allows you to also do other debuffs on other weapons if you want and have all of this continuously stack. The other stuff that we have on here is Refreshing Move, light and heavy attacks reduce your cooldowns. We have Enchanted for 5.3% extra damage, and as well as I put Mending Vortex. However, you could probably put Crowded Bludgeon or any other perk that you want on here, truthfully. But I love Mending Vortex because I'm able to get some of my healing back on top of the normal healing of Vortex. I think that this is the more well-rounded perk, but please disagree with me in the comments and tell us why so that people who do watch this video or read the comments can make an informed decision. All right, and the other weapon I have, this is not, I need you to know something. This is not best in slot gear, but I'm going to give you some guides on what you should be looking for. But with this one specifically, I was looking for 2 perks. Number 1, I wanted Refreshing Move, and number 2, I wanted Contagious Upheaval. Now, the best 3rd perk, or if I could get it on here, the best for me, for this build specifically to tank, would be Hated Refreshing Move, Contagious Upheaval. That's what I would like. The reason we want Refreshing Move is because every time we swing, we lower cooldowns, and Contagious Upheaval, which we'll talk about that actual like weapon perk here in just a moment. But what we have on here is hitting a target with Upheaval transfers 2 debuffs that you have on yourself to the target. Now that sounds, could it be useful? Yes. What if you're getting disease off of you? It's kind of just like a debuff remover, but in some cases you're putting it on your target, which can be really useful in mutations, especially if it is a disease. You can hurt their healing if they've got Oblivion or Bramble or whatever the case. Now, as far as actual weapons that come along with this and stats that we're looking for, this build is actually a focus con build, which sounds kind of crazy when you could just do a strength con build, but I'll explain why more in a little bit. So I want to find a sword that's usually constitution or focus. You're not going to find a lot of those on the market, so you're probably going to have to wait for the perfect drop to occur. You can get swords to drop with focus if you spec correctly and it's your highest attribute, which you can see here is I actually have one right here that is just Vicious Shirking. This was one that I picked up that was just a focus sword for me to start this build when I was learning it. But anyway, yes, you can get 4 swords to drop as focus. For the Heart Rune, I'm using the same Heart Rune I use for most builds, which is the Stalwart Heart Rune of Some Forms. When you pop it, you actually get a lot of just immunity to CC, but you're able to get some healing back for 5 seconds. You can get 75% of the Heart Rune damage, which is like basically at 800 tick for 5 seconds. So for the armor, we're actually looking at a lot of the pieces of the Frigid Dawn set. You can see here, this is the head, and let me go ahead and explain why you want the Frigid Dawn. So it comes with actually an illegal combination of perks. You can't roll this on gear, which is Enchanted Ward and Elemental Aversion. Enchanted Ward is kind of like the top of the line perk that you probably should look for, especially on kind of almost any build. Enchanted Ward is great because it's 4% damage reduction on light and heavy attacks, which is covering basically any enemy in the game as well as even players in the game. It reduces that, and if you have that on 5 pieces plus some other stuff, you could have 20-25% reduction just from these perks, not even from gems. But then you also get Elemental Aversion, which is 4.4% less damage from ranged elemental attacks, which is not the greatest perk in the world, but there's a lot of stuff that you deal with inside mutations, or even if you're dealing with like Fire Staff or Void Gauntlet, all that stuff counts as ranged elemental attacks. attacks, you're even reducing even more damage from those. So each piece that you get that is the Frigid Dawn gear comes with Elemental Aversion and Enchanted Ward. You can actually farm it inside Glacial Tarn. This week, actually, if you go here to Mutated Expeditions, it is the Mutated Expedition Glacial Tarn. Depths also is here, which is actually the artifact jewelry we're using, which is the Lost Stopwatch, comes from here. So if you watch this when it releases, you can try to farm for all of this gear right now if you wanted. But back to gear, I'm running as many pieces that I can get. These gloves are like 651 purples, not that great. You can see here's some pants with Empowering Shooter Stance. I'm not really concerned about the third perk right now. And then this one actually has Freedom. This one I bought from the kiln to get it 700. It costs 3,500 mutated experience or mutator stuff. Look at this guy, like straight up in the mix. What is he doing? For the tower shield itself, there's one perk I would make sure you have on here, and that's Enchanted Ward. If you can try to roll a shield with it, that's even more damage reduction on top of the shield being itself. And then if you want to put Crowded Bludgeon on the Power Stone, great. Or whatever weapon perk you want to put, do that. I put it on the actual tower shield so that when I hit someone with Crowded Bludgeon, that's one of my taunts that taunts the group. I have its cooldown reduced if it hits 2 people. Doesn't matter if they do damage or not. If it's blocked, it doesn't matter. It will reduce it by 15%. I think it's 30% if it's on a weapon. All that to say, aim for the Frigid Dawn set. For the chest piece, I have this. It literally dropped to the previous expedition I did prior to this. Enchanted Ward, Refreshing, and Health. You can farm the Azoth Crystal gear from the Mutated Expeditions, even when it's not like Starstone or whatever the case. I think it drops in any M2 or above, and it comes with stock Enchanted Ward and Refreshing. So this is also a really good set if you can grab all of these, or try to get the Frigid Dawn set, or just pre-craft a bunch of stuff with Enchanted Ward. And I want to go ahead and mention, I'm waiting for Barnacles to come back around. I want to run Void Dark Plate as the artifact right here. I think that Void Dark Plate is the better artifact to have because it gives you 20% extra armor just from having that. So once that comes back, I will be using the Void Dark Plate as my tanking armor artifact. Some people would say wall, but I like dodging. I think that it's a useful skill in the game. And while the wall is nice, I also like swinging. So I feel like the benefit of the wall doesn't really play itself very well when I want to actually swing and lower cooldowns and I'm not holding shield the whole time. For the artifact jewelry, we're actually talking about the Lost Stopwatch. Now, some people are going to be like, yeah, but you could use Blood Drinker. And you know what? I 100% agree with you. Not even a disagreement there. If you do Blood Drinker, I would run a full strength build in con and not focus so that you can slot Carnelians inside both of your weapons. And I wouldn't just put it in one. Please don't be that tank that only has Carnelians in one weapon and you only have one taunt and everybody else runs away and you're like, oh my god, I lost aggro, everyone died, but I lived and I'm the greatest tank in the world. You're not. And you just cost your team your life because you wanted to think that I'm the best dude. Your job is to keep threat. Not to do damage, it is to keep threat. You can do that by doing damage, but stop being... I have literally been with so many tanks the last few days. It is dreadful. They also don't even know what it looks like to have aggro. I'll show you that here in a minute. The Lost Stopwatch, I haven't even upgraded it. I'll probably will put Divine on this, but what you can see here is Stunny Gaze. Taunts are active. Every taunt on the weapons are active. You get 300% more threat. Stuns last 1% longer, but base damage is decreased by 10%. Sure, you lose some damage, but your job is not to DPS. Your job is to keep threat. Comes with Purify, Health, and then you can obviously just slot your next piece on there. For my ring, there's a bunch of different rings you can go, truthfully, but I have this one. This is a Vivify, Healing Breeze, Refreshing, and Sacred because I am healing from this build. I think Healing Breeze is great because I am still getting something to heal from my armor, especially when I use the Flail Mending Vortex. It heals people around me, so they actually get hit with Healing Breeze and get some healing from it, and Sacred helps out. So I've been keeping this from my healing build over onto the tanking build, and it works really well. I do have another ring. I don't know if I've kept it inside my inventory. I do not. Let me see if I can go find it. Yeah, this is actually a better ring probably that I should run. I might switch it over, but you have Healing Breeze still, but I have Enfeebling, and because I'm doing a whole bunch of weakens through this build, I should probably just switch to this. That's actually what I'm going to do, is actually put this on here. Enfeebling is a really nice perk because we are focusing on making sure that weakens are stacked so that the enemies do less damage. So maybe you try something with Enfeebling, and this has got Refreshing, so kind of a thought here if you want to pick one of these up. And for the earring, I got really lucky. Like day 2 bought this earring. It was a 32 focus 700, but the reason I got it was it had Despised as a focus ring and Nimble. That's really what I wanted. It has Refreshing Toast too. I think this is literally best in slot, just because you are going to be able to generate more threat. You could even get Hated on your shield, or you get Hated on your sword, whatever the case. There's a whole bunch of things you can do to make sure you keep threat. But I think this is probably, for me, best in slot earring. I honestly can't believe I was this lucky to pick this ring up. But all you need to find is if you can get one with Despised or Despised and Nimble, I think that's a great way to start. For my attributes, I'm running 252 focus. That's not really what I'm focused on. I want 350 constitution because I do want damage reduction while I have active grit, because I can heavy swing and have grit. There are some of my abilities that have it. However, you don't necessarily have to have 350. You could go just 300. Gain grit while charging and performing heavy attacks. If you're not going to do heavy attacks, you could go 250. I do think 250 is the minimum that you should probably go here, and you could put all of those 100 points. I could put them into focus, do more damage, etc. Oh, speaking of that, forgot to mention one thing. The reason that I'm actually running those abilities and I'm running a sword is because I slotted an amber in here. So the reason for that is if focus is higher than like strength or dex, replace weapon scaling with focus, but at 65% scaling. So I can still get damage increase on the sword by just putting an amber, because this is a cut pristine amber, by the way, and still be able to increase the damage of the weapon just by doing this, and then I can still scale it with focus. You can do this with any weapon, great sword, hatchet, whatever the case, and still be a healer build without having to run strength or dex. You just don't get any of those benefits of putting points into strength or dex though. So I'm running that here, and then on the flail itself, I'm running just to cut pristine diamonds that have more healing that goes out. So that's what I'm running for gems. Oh, and for the rest of the gear, I'm running 4 onyx, 4 opals. I'm missing one here, but that's the whole point. 4 cut pristine onyx, 4 cut pristine opals, so I can get 10% across the board. I'm missing one, just FYI. That's why only it says 7.5% right here. So most of that should have been an extra 10% reduction all around. Back over here, we want the 250 bubble so we can increase our outgoing healing that we can, that we're going to get from Mending Vortex and all of the abilities that we use from the actual flail. But what we really want from focus, and why I wanted to do a focus build, was ability cooldown reduction from the 25 bubble, 10% increased healing coming in from the actual 50 bubble. The 150 has 20% outgoing healing effectiveness, and then the 200 has 20% buff duration. So you can see all of this just continues to stack all the buffs that I get, all the stuff. It's just, I think it synergizes well. Sure, could you go up here and do some more stuff with getting more damage out and powers, and that's great. But my job is threat, not damage. All right, let's talk about weapon mastery itself. We're going to go through the sword and shield and then the flail. For this is, if you want to go ahead and screenshot this and hold on to it, take your phone, take a picture so you can do it when you're in game, go for it. But this is what I have found that works really well. I don't think it is like set in stone, but this works really well for me, and I'll explain why I've chosen these perks. You could totally choose some other stuff, and I'll explain those options. For the sword master side, we only have, I think it's 5 points over here, but we want upheaval. This one I think is literally required. You want upheaval. Why? And I'll show you that here in a second. An upward slice that deals 200% weapon and it has grit. Cool. That's great. Upheaval hits against targets that are inflicted with crowd control, roots, whatever, do more damage. That's great. Cool. I don't really care about any of that. I want tactician. On a successful hit with upheaval, all sword cooldowns are reduced by 25%. Why do I want that? Because I want Defender's Resolve to be cut in a quarter. So its 30% cooldown is now 23 seconds instead of 30 seconds. So I think that this is almost required, and you're swinging with your light attack, you hit with an upheaval, you transfer, because we have that weapon perk, we transfer debuffs over to them, and then we also are able to get our Defender's Resolve. And I'll show some, you'll see plenty of those clips later when I actually do some clips of showing you how the tanking works. You'll see some of how all that works, but yes, you want this. You also want Achilles heel. The final attack in your light chain inflicts a 15% rend. You want to be able to put rends out the best you can. You are going to be light attacking a lot and doing some heavies, but light attacks are going to be what's really letting you generate threat, so this is really beneficial. And I grabbed Opportunist just so that I could grab this bubble for Tactician. I don't personally care about Opportunist. That's not what I really want, but I placed it so I could get Tactician, because you can't do that bubble without having a bubble here. that's why it's there. On the defender side, you can see that I grabbed a sturdy shield, which is 15% more physical armor. You get sturdy grip. Stamina damage is reduced by 15% when blocking a melee attack, which is just that you don't, lose your stamina as much when you're blocking. Elemental resistance, reduced base damage from all magical types by 10%. Very beneficial. You can see defensive training. When you block an attack, you get Fortify, 20% Fortify for 5 seconds. Huge here. One with the shield. If I have a tower shield, which we do, being hit or blocking a hit will extend durations of all buffs on yourself by 5%. So fortifies, all that stuff, heals, buffs, any of that, continuing to be able to increase. And seeing as you're a tank, you're constantly being able to get hit with this, so it continues to stack and stack and stack. You're going to take Final Blow. This is a requirement. The third attack in your light chain deals 15% more base damage. That's fine. And generates additional threat. That's what we want. And it's 40% threat is what I think they increased it to in the patch notes. I might be wrong, but I think it's 40% increased threat from your light attack. And then you also want Recuperation, another 10% bump in health and regeneration while using this. Now, as far as actual perks that we're using or actual skills, I'm using Shield Rush. So you rush forward, you do damage, whatever. It has grit. That's nice. On successful hit, this is cool. Within all enemies within 5 meters. Okay, that's almost as big as a beacon bubble, are inflicted with a 20% weaken for 10 seconds, which is very huge. And then Intimidating Rush on successful hit, all enemies within 5 meters also are slowed for 30%, which is very useful because then it helps your DPS be able to continue to DPS, etc. Defender's Resolve, this one is kind of like your bread and butter. This is your taunt. This is your main taunt for this build. For 8 seconds, reduce incoming base damage from attackers by 30% and reduce stamina damage while blocking. Huge. It has grit, so you know you're going to be able to cast it. Grant a bonus to Defender's Resolve based on shield type. We're using Tower. Base damage reduction is increased by another 20%. And then when it's done, you heal for 30% of your base health. So for every 10,000 health, you're getting a 3,000 heal, and all of that stacks with all of the increased healing from the team, etc., etc. So, if you're at 20,000 health, you're talking about 6,000, 7,000 healing just from this finishing. And the more you can pop this, the more you're able to get your health up. And then defensive formation, when blocking, allies inside get 30% more reduction on damage, which is very useful. But you're not always blocking unless it's a really, really bad situation, or you're getting staggered all the time. You can block and then reduce damage as well as help out all the DPS that are really close. Really nice. There is an argument where you go Whirling Blade on this side, drop Shield Rush, and you could go Leadership. Totally an option. And that is a point of the build. Some people live by Leadership. I do. I agree. Leadership is great. I've just found that with all of this new updates to staggering and hitting you and moving you all around, you can't constantly swing like you did prior to Season 6. And I feel like defensive formation allows you to at least hold a block and buff your team when you can or when you're getting low. For Flail, you can see this is a really weird build, and I'm actually going to build it 2 different ways, but I've been running it like this because I've been testing whether or not I like Trip or I like Arcane Eruption. And I think Trip is the best for adding Rends to your team, but I like the healing that you can do with Arcane Eruption. So this is how, after doing testing, I think I would run my build, and probably how I'd encourage you to do it for yourself. So on the Cleric side, we're taking basically everything except for 5 bubbles. We're not taking, what is this, Arcane Smite. We're not taking Happy Flails, and we're not taking Debilitating Extension. I don't think that those are the biggest benefits here, but we're taking everything else. So we're getting haste as well as increased healing. We're getting cooldown reductions. Mending Vortex is fantastic, or Arcane Vortex mending with the actual perk. You spin, you grant empowers, you're granting healing, you're doing roots, you're granting haste, you're granting cleanse for your whole team that are close by. It's really cool. And since we're using focus, everything here is scaled up, which is really, really nice here. You're also getting, while at or below 50% health, you're able to get more damage or lifesteal, which is really nice. Leader of the pack. When no allies are near, you do more damage. When one or more are around, they get more damage from an empower piece. And then Better Together is just a healing effect around you. Anyone that's close to you will get basically a Sacred Tick, which is really nice. Spiky Impairment, if you're hit while above 90%, you're inflicting more weaken. And then I'm going in Arcane Eruption, which is basically just an attack that will slow some foes, increase some of their movement speed, and like reduce it, as well as Supportive Blessing, which will bounce healing around to your allies, basically proccing Healing Breeze, healing yourself, healing your team, etc., etc. Really nice here. On the Bastion side, you start with Vital Suppressant, which is reduced damage taken by 4% or damage from stamina, whatever the case. We start here with a Vital Suppressant. Reductive Superiority, decreased base durations of crowd control effects on you by 10% because you have an actual tower shield. And then we have Warding Bludgeon. This is like your taunt on this weapon, which is what's really cool. Performing Spinning Leap. This triggers a burst of energy. You get Reinforced Fortify for yourself and all allies close to you, increasing armor by 50% for 8 seconds or until 3 hits are taken. It has Grit. Then it also reduces stamina damage taken, and blocking while under Reinforced Fortify will, inflict impairments, which is kind of what all of this is built around. Impairment is a weaken. It just weakens your foes, which is what's really cool. And then you also get Best Friends. It'll actually tag itself to an enemy near you, and they will have 50% damage reduction, and you take 35% of that damage. And as a tank, that's not that big of a deal. And I like popping this. You could totally put, you could drop Arcane Eruption, you can go into Barrage to have a second taunt, but I have not had an opportunity where I don't feel like I don't have a taunt every single time I need one. All right, so to explain this build a little bit better, we're going to go over to the fort, and we're going to stare at a training dummy. I'm going to show you how this works. All right, so as you can see, here are the training dummies, and what we're going to do is talk about the taunts themselves. So Defender's Resolve is kind of like your big pop right here, okay? This is the one that gives you the benefits, the buffs, you're able to taunt. It's really an AoE heal all around, which is great, but you can see it's 21 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever the case. That refreshing move every time we swing is going to make that taunt go down. And what you can see is our damage is abysmally low. It's not what we're concerned about. Okay, but the reason we want Upheaval is I go into the fight, right? I probably am going to hit him with the Shield Bash so that I get some Fortify, okay? Then I'm going to pop Defender's Resolve and then immediate Upheaval. And the reason I do immediate Upheaval is because I went from 30 seconds down to 20 seconds on that cooldown. I can still swing, right? I've already got Shield Bash ready, boom, boom, boom. Defender's Resolve, pop, 30 seconds. All the way to 19 seconds just from me hitting it with Upheaval. So I'm able to keep that Defender's Resolve. It just ran out, and now I'm able to pop it again. I'm able to basically have it up really quickly. Defender's Resolve has 2 seconds left on it. It just ran out, and then I'm able to pop it again. So I'm able to keep it up almost all time if I wanted. Now, obviously, I'm going to get staggered. You're not going to see that perfectly every single time. But that combination of Defender's Resolve and Upheaval, huge, huge. Boom. All of that done. Cool. On the Flail side, it's the same thing. Arcane Smite gives you the healing. And it also, I just got haste, just because I hit that, right? But as far as Crowded Bludgeon, this will work kind of by hitting them in the center. It's got a really good AoE effect. So as you're going into a group, you can see that it hits. You get the Reinforced, and you can also do Mending Vortex to be able to heal yourself. You get all of these buffs at the bottom. All of this stuff, empowers, everything, as well as getting the heals. So really, really nice opportunity to do that. And then if you get too low, you got pots as well as your heart rune. You have stone form where you can pop it and get some healing. So what you can do is get into the fight, pop this, you can switch over and start debuffing your team, right? Taunts are getting low. Oh no. Pop Crowded Bludgeon, hit, keep going forward. Defender's Resolve is almost up. I can switch over. And then immediately I can pop Defender's Resolve again. All right, so I'm over here in Brim, and here's an enemy. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to look at his name bar. Right now, around his name bar, if I get too close, I'll aggro him. But around his name bar, it's gray. That means that you do not have threat. They're not targeting you, anything. As I move closer, you can still see it's gray. But the moment that he's going to look at me, you're going to see that it's going to go red around that bar. Let's see how close I can get. You see the red on the very end of his name bar? That means that I am the person receiving the threat. I'm the one going to be attacked from the team. And if somebody else is in my team right now, in my group, and I see this red, 9 times out of 10, unless it's a boss sometimes, they're going to see the gray bar, not the red bar. And that red bar says, I have threat, okay? Now, when I pop a taunt, you can see that it has the electric symbols. That means that I have taunted the foe. Obviously, they're going to continue to target me, even if I'm not hitting them, generating threat. Now, from a threat perspective, I'm going to kind of talk about this for a moment. From a threat perspective, if you're healing, you do a lot of what's called healing damage, and it has a lot of threat as well. So if your tank is not, and I mean this with all, well, I don't really mean it with that much, but the truth is, I've ran into so many tanks that just sit here and do this. This is what their idea of tanking is. They just hold right click. They're not really doing anything. They think, oh, I can survive, and they can just hit me, so I'm a tank. But then the healer is putting out so much healing that a lot of the people around the tank will just de-aggro, and that name bar will turn gray. And so they'll go focus on the healer. And then the healer can see, because of the red bar, they'll be able to see that they're focused on them and know that they have aggro, and they need to run through the tank. By the way, this is one trick for healers. You need to run through the tank so that the tank can pull aggro again. Okay, don't just run away from the tank. Run through the tank as much as you can. Okay. Well, anyway, what the actual person who's the tank needs to do is to do damage. Okay, because this generates threat. And we also know with the sword and shield, the third piece of the light attack will do increased threat, etc., right? Also, your teammates, if they're really good DPS people, will out-threat you just from damage itself. So, like, great swords, serenity, hatchet people, you know, they could out-DPS you and out-threat you too, which could put you in a bad position, and you lose that red border around the actual enemy. So, something you can do, let's say that you've popped your taunt, both of your taunts are on cooldown, and now you're like, well, I can't pull this group. What do I need to do, right? You see that he has no taunt right now, right? Both of my taunts are on cooldown. This is a new update. If I heavy attack, look what happened. It does just enough threat to taunt him and turn him back to me. And now, obviously, this is just a single target thing with the sword, right? But if I'm doing a flail, I could hit a group, and now they're all focused on me. Now, I'm not even using anything that is actually a taunt. You can see I'm keeping threat by just heavy attacking him. Okay, obviously he's not, whatever the case, but I'm just heavy attacking, and I'm able to keep that threat on him. So this could be an option. So let's say you run out of things and you're like, oh no, I need to turn a single enemy. Heavy attacks will pop that threat generator on there. Now, there are full healing builds where you just out DPS people. Like, there are people who tank with hatchet, and there's nothing wrong with tanking with just hatchet. Not at all. Nothing at all with doing that. My big concern is, you know, what happens when you're getting low, and are you able to actually effectively block enemies, right? Especially with this new stagger mechanic. This build allows you to use tower shield on both setups. And as far as blocking goes, you can see I'm on the flail right now, right? I don't want to block with flail as much. It's still a tower shield, but not when I have defenders, you know, the actual defender bubble from the sword tree. So all I have to do is change a weapon, and I can be that easily into the sword to be able to do blocking, and you see that a lot. All right, so I'm going to queue in for a random mutator right now and just tank it with you. I do have some footage of where I've done a Starstone M1 and a Starstone M2, but the teams I got were not like the greatest teams in the world. One of them kept sabotaging and like killing themselves consistently. Anyway, if you want to play with me so I don't have to always queue randoms, Cyrus on Hudson Land. All right, here we go. Starstone Burrows. This is just an M1. That should be simple. I've got food prompt. These are ancients in here. Not that anyone's going to wait. Popped our buffs and stuff, and in we go. Here we go. We're going to start off with the flail. Got some healing off. There we go, we got some taunts, and as you can see, nothing too crazy right now, not from an M1 perspective. We're gonna run in here, grab this taunt from everyone, and there we go, 17 seconds. As you can see, I'm just getting crazy staggered just from as many attacks that I'm getting. So I'm not able to like reduce my cooldown as much as I was before. Just because I'm not able to light swing constantly. But you can see I'm able to keep energy, keep DPS, keep threat, and just to move on. Somebody's already died, by the way. Kind of weird. If you're also a DPS or a healer, please don't do anything until the tank actually has any kind of like threat or something out, some kind of a taunt. So you're not the person pulling people away from actually like doing their job. So what you'll see here is I guarantee you one of these musket guys will jump, shoot something. There we go. I was actually able to get it off. Okay, cool. Up people, got my attack in. I gotta get back to the sacred bubble. That would be cool if I could. Lost threat. Boom. Guys down. We move forward. Doing some shield blocking just because these guys are a little too overactive and are definitely stunning me. Alright, cool. Easy peasy. Now this is just an M1. Obviously if you're going to be in an M2 kind of situation, you know, you're going to want to do a little bit more, maybe smaller pulls. I'm going to pull, and we're going to see how this goes. I'm going to kind of pull them through. Here we go. Not that hard of a pull here. Alright, cool. Here we go. Got the taunt off. Again, I'm just trying to position the back of the enemy to the DPS, because as I turn, he's going to turn because he's focused on me. And there we go. I can keep my team alive as long as the DPS stays on the opposite side of me. I can help keep my team alive just from that aspect. But we're still early in the game, and a lot of people on fresh start, and they haven't realized, like, don't be on the wrong side of the tank. Don't be on the side that, if people are swinging, it doesn't matter that the tank has aggro. If the person swings and you're standing where the tank is, you're gonna take the damage. So you stand other places. I'm gonna pull them up to the rangers. So I popped both taunts there because I wasn't able to grab them all. So my goal now is I need to try to get my Defender's Resolve back quickly, which I just got it back, which is good. Get some extra Fortify. There we go, and that's how we do it. You can see the team, no one went down, it's clean. All I'm trying to do is make sure you pull stuff. Oh, and also as a tank. These are like tank tip 101s. If you're going to tank, make sure you actually pull any of the moving melee people to the actual ranger people. So the rangers are just going to stand there and shoot, right? Your mages are just going to stand there and shoot. Move the people who are melee that are, you know, are going to chase you. Move them to the rangers so the DPS can kill them all in like one clump. Alright, so pop my taunt. He focuses me. There he goes. Now you can see I've got the red bar, which means I have the aggro now. Lord Wrestle is on the wrong side, as you can see. Pop my aggro. If they'll stay on the correct side. There we go. Old Westfire is his name. taunted, I'm still in Sacred, so I'm able to get some heals. You can see how he's on the opposite side of the DPS. That's good. Just got Upheaval back, and I'm able to transfer all of my poison onto Simon Gray right here. Now, you can see he's pushing me a lot. And the reason he's pushing me is because of these new updated stagger mechanics, which just makes this difficult. Sorry, you're not going to be able to really tell what I'm doing right now because I'm right against a wall. Let's see if I can turn the camera so you can see. Defender's Resolve back up, and then he's dead. So, able to really guard my team there. I don't know why he wasted a Sacred on himself, but okay. To go. I had that guy, that one ranger that was kind of up on the ledge. He didn't want to move. So all I did was turn around, pop my taunt his direction, and he focused me instead of throwing it at the most likely candidate, which would have been the healer. Trying to get that DPS off the healer so he can do his job. Him being full health means an extra 15% healing effectiveness if he has a diamond. Trying to get it where he'll stop moving. And boom, easy. Easy peasy. So, that was the build. The rest of that expedition turned into just a conversation with a healer who's been a long time player, just kind of like talking about being a healer. Thank you so much for watching this video. You've got to check my Flail healing build if you haven't. It'll be right here, and you should check out this build right here. Honestly, these are absolutely nuts. My next video is going to be my top 3 builds in the game. You've got to check that out. Make sure you subscribe. I'm so close to 1,000 subscribers and fully monetizing this channel. Love you guys. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great day.